He was being very nice.
I gotta have my cup out there, like a boss.
All right, Lisa, you want to move your mic arm down a little bit?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do all that testing stuff. That is so cool.
Like that.
Yep, that should be.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Noble. I am the owner and attorney of Noble Law PLLC. Welcome to my podcast, The Noble Law Experience. Today, I have a very special guest, and I will let him introduce himself.
I don't know about special, but my name's Hunter Cook. I'm the executive director of Nancy's Place. We are a nonprofit organization that provides housing for individuals with intellectual and mental disabilities. We also provide a lot of robust education material to help families get the services they need.
That's great. Now, Hunter, I'm going to point out that in the last several years, Iowa has not had many resources with individuals with needs such as those that you serve. What prompted you to start this organization?
Um, it's a I'll try not to be long-winded about it, but I've been in this industry for about 10 years now, which is crazy to think about. I provide, besides being an executive director, I work at Woodward Resource Center. So I provide direct help to individuals with intellectual and mental disabilities in the community. I can range from people that have very, very low functioning, where I have to help them walk, to use the bathroom, to brush their teeth, to shower, to other individuals that are more higher functioning that just need some guidance on what to do day to day. And before I worked for Woodward, I worked for Candeo, who, if anyone's watched the news, they're really suffering with funds where they've actually had to send individuals back home to their families because they couldn't provide services. Real terrible stuff. And I worked there before. And how I got into this field is I was living in the Chicago area. I was going to College of DuPage, and it was pretty shiftless. I was just there for something to do, and there was this elective on working with this population. Seemed pretty cool, so I took some classes, did it, and I thought it was the neatest thing in the world. So upon doing it more, I was going to do their version of a resident treatment worker in Illinois, very similar state kind of job. But my family needed me back out here at home, so I moved back and I got a job at Candeo, and then I started working there. And what prompted me to start this organization is, regardless of where I worked, whether it's for the state or for the nonprofit sector, a good amount of the homes that I serve these individuals in are dumps. You haven't lived until you've worked a 12-hour shift. Go to the bathroom and you can see under the floorboards into the basement.
Now, let me ask you, so you talk about the homes that these individuals live in. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to our viewers and listeners, are these private homes? Do these individuals own the homes? Does the state own the home? Where do they live?
So it's mixed. Some nonprofit organizations, such as Balance Autism or Link Associates, they will actually build their own homes. A lot of those are specific, where if a client has very, very difficult special needs that they need, like a Hoyer lift or something, these houses need to be custom done to accommodate them to be able to live and integrate in the community. But a lot of these houses are just run-of-the-mill landlords or even apartments. For example, the main house that I work at, a church owns it, and it's probably one of our worst houses, unfortunately. Black mold in the basement, caulking needs to be done. It's just a dump. It was the old parishioner's house, and now it's might be their biggest form of revenue too, which is kind of indicative of how they're operating. But yeah, it's frustrating that if I can't even have a church provide a good living situation for the clients I serve, people in the regular private sector, they're definitely not going to do so. So, and that's not to say all of them. There's some decent houses, but for the most part, it's pretty bad.
Let me ask you, you had mentioned while you were talking a Hoyer lift. Again, there may be some people out there that don't understand what a Hoyer lift is.
Oh, sure.
Can you explain what a Hoyer lift is, what it does, and why there might be one there?
So a Hoyer lift, if you have maybe parents that are older in a nursing home or someone that has some physical disabilities, it's a system where you can put netting under your limbs and under your backside, and you can kind of rotate someone in. And it's a big machine that'll lift them securely, kind of hold them in place, and it'll help lower them into a wheelchair, into maybe an adaptive kind of gurney style device. and that's to help them get to wherever you need to go. And that's the safest way to get someone in and out of bed or another area. So it's a pretty big machine, and you got to lumber it around. Typically, for safety reasons, you probably want 2 people doing it too. So it's a lot of machinery just to get somebody from A to B where they need to go safely.
And so you may have people in these homes that cannot ambulate on their own. They can't walk. They can't get themselves into a wheelchair. They can't get themselves into a tub or a shower. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We have all kinds of different adaptive equipment that affects them. Whether it's I can't think of the name of it. It's the tub with the doors, so you can open it. They can kind of walk in because they can't step over and do it. I've worked in some houses where we've needed that for a while. Landlord hasn't provided it, so it's me just taking an extra half hour just trying to safely get someone to a bathtub or a shower just to get it done. So yeah, there's a lot of different equipment that would require things to be safe for the clients I serve.
So I have a question. If you are an individual that owns a home, you're a landlord, and you're renting it out for profit, you have to meet certain requirements for the city to have a rental certificate. How are these organizations getting away with having black mold and holes in the floors? Aren't they landlords? Don't they have to meet the same requirements?
You would think so. So one of the bigger issues, actually a bigger problem than that, not to get away from that question, but nowadays, and I know some recent legislation that I think it was SF 252 has made it even more difficult for us to even find homes in the first place. Don't quote me on it because it was a while since I watched all that, but the gist is, to the best of my recollection, is you can kind of discriminate and just pick and choose who goes into your home, regardless if you're getting paid Section 8 housing or not. We've got some houses that we've tried to find different accommodations where we're on 2 or 3 years to find a different spot. And a lot of it is finding the right house to fit the needs of the individuals we serve. Some of them actually might have sexual issues so we can't be by a school. We need to keep it in the safest place for them, for their safety and the safety of others, so that they can continue to work on those issues. And because of the different difficulties for the clients we have, it can be really hard to find a landlord that will do that. A lot of them, you say, we have some clients with special needs. They're checked out before you can get started.
Okay, I want to back you up a little bit about this bill. SF, what was it?
I believe it's 252. I hope I'm telling you the right one.
Okay. Whatever the name of the bill is this in the Iowa legislature or federal?
Iowa, I believe. I think it was passed 2 years ago. I remember being pretty upset about it, but it's been long enough where it's kind of been in the background. So I should have written it down before, because I figured I would have ended up talking about it. But yeah, it's a weird piece of legislation, and I really didn't understand who it benefits, but it is what it is, I guess.
So our legislature in the state of Iowa has passed a bill that allows landlords to discriminate against disabled people, especially if they need special help in their own home?
For I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't have a different way to approach it, but that was what I got from the bill, and kind of because I watched the session, and the verbiage of it just didn't really make a lot of sense, and it didn't seem good. Now my personal opinion is, if you're taking money from the government through Section 8 housing, you really shouldn't be picky and choosy of who you're going to provide services for. I mean, you have guaranteed vacancy, which is a huge plus for anyone that deals with real estate. Honestly, too, and for being a waiver service such as ours, you have 24-hour security because there's always a staff there. The funny, ironic thing about our issues with finding housing is probably individuals with waiver housing are the best tenants you could ever have, because you don't have to deal with turnover, you don't have to deal with vacancies, you don't have to deal, without having someone always there watching and making sure everything's taken care of. I have a rental property, but it's to my little sister, and that's a whole different story. She'll eventually move out, I think. Cross my fingers.
Yeah.
Love you, Summer. But But yeah, like if I had another rental property, that would be all I would rent to, because it is the most reasonable and intelligent way to make sure that you have income coming in and you have a responsible party making sure nothing wrong is going to happen.
Okay. So, and most of these individuals get Section 8 because they are on disability, or?
It would depend. The reason that they all have to be roommates together in the first place, it's typically we shoot for 3 to 4 people in a home. It's because they have SSI, Social Security. It's a combination of everything.
Okay.
And even though it's a combination of everything, those funds don't really go a long way.
Right.
So the best bet is to have them living together, pool their money, and be able to be a part of the community. Because
Right.
I don't have the exact study, but from what I was reading, individuals that live in a community setting as opposed to an institutionalized setting, they develop a good 60% faster than people who don't. So that's huge.
So I just want to clarify something.
Mm-hmm.
Section 8 is funding that's paid for by the government
Or
through
that's,
taxes, right? And you and I pay taxes. And so what the government has done is decided that my taxes, your taxes, and their taxes are going to be used to discriminate against people who have disabilities. I don't know about you folks out there, but I luckily don't have any family members that would require a housing like this. But that's disgusting. And I am sickened that the legislators in the state of Iowa would do something like this. Who wants to discriminate against disabled people?
Well, it's not just people with disabilities. It can be anybody. It could be someone that's black. It could be someone that's Hispanic. It could be somebody, I mean, if you have Section 8, you're on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. So that, that really just hurts anyone that's low income. So yeah.
It absolutely does.
So it's something that really bothered me as I was starting this, because we had a year and a half to wait, and I filed the 501c3 by myself because I didn't feel like blowing $4,000, and
Yeah.
I actually cheated a little bit to file it because I had the auditor book, so I was like, okay, they want that for an answer.
Uh-huh.
So during that time, I was sitting and waiting and kind of strategizing on how to do things. Yeah, it really rubbed me the wrong way, and it was something that I've kind of forgotten out because, we all have the shortest attention span. So, something in the legislation, regardless of what your political leanings are, it'll make you pretty mad for a little bit, and then you'll kind of forget. Unless it's something like Roe v. Wade or something that's like a big deal, a lot of the micro things, and I think a lot of politicians rely on our short memory just to kind of get annoyed and then forget about it and then deal with it.
Well, not only rely on our short memory, but I think create other sensationalized news so that we drop our attention on that and move it to something else.
Oh, absolutely, and it's something that we've dealt with for a long time, but it feels like as we're more of a globalized society, everyone's face is glued to their phone, and you can pick and choose what your side is and only your side, and whatever side, whether you're Republican or Democrat, I'm pretty libertarian, so I watch everything. But these the outrage stuff is red meat for each side, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, and it's a really good, effective tool for legislators to not be held accountable or to not have to deal with things. And both sides do it. It's terrible. But
Yeah, it is terrible. That our Iowa legislatures would allow landlords who are getting taxpayer money to discriminate against anyone in housing is sickening enough. And I know there is a federal law that you can't, equal opportunity fair
American
housing.
with Disabilities Act 2, I think, covers some of that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is just sickening, quite frankly.
Well, before we rail on conservatives for it, because that really infuriates me. This stuff happens not even on a state level, but for city level too.
Yeah.
I've got a horror story of Urbandale, where I live personally, and I love Urbandale. It's such a cool spot. You're really in the middle of everything. As Grimes is growing too, I mean, where I live, I have my choice of 5 Hy-Vees, 4 Fairways, 3 Walmarts. It's a really cool kind of situation. So I like being there, and the community's great, especially my specific cul-de-sac that I live on. But one thing that I got in the mail today was, or not today, but a while back, was from the Urbandale City Council talking about this Uplex that they're building, this big recreation center. Now, I want everyone in my community to have all the amenities possible and enjoy themselves, but I read there and it said, well, it would cost about $119 per $200,000 house. Well, if you really do the math and do the average, it's more than that. It's about $250 a year. And I was like, oh, that's kind of pricey. Okay, well, and then I looked at where it was. It's on the border of Waukee, like the furthest away from Urbandale you can ever think of. It would take me 16 minutes to drive there, but it would take you 2 minutes to get to the Waukee Hy-Vee, which is right there in the heart of Waukee. So I was like, that's a little weird to have all of us pay for something that Waukee citizens would primarily use. And I'll be honest, I was a little more than just, oh no, I was pretty pissed off about it, because it just
Certainly.
And my reason for being irritated was not necessarily just that and how it kind of, it was expected that the city council wanted everyone to pay for something that Waukee, which is historically more wealthy,
Yes.
to pay for. We had clients with special needs that I specifically worked with get evicted out of Urbandale from the last property tax rate increase. And here we are again with another $250 a year. And so what happened there was these ladies are great. I still work with them. They live in a different location now, but so one of them needs a gate ball to walk, to get up, to dress, pureed food, you name it. Like if some catastrophe happened in the world, she's stuck and done, because there'd be no one to help her do what she needs to do.
Yeah.
Her other two roommates too need a lot of help. They're older ladies, and one of my favorite places to work. And what happened is when the property taxes rose, the landlord switched it to a month-to-month lease, and then jacked the rent up $500.
A month?
Yes.
Oh
And
my gosh.
there was no way the funds that they allocated were going to be able to pay for that. And keep in mind, this is before inflation and everything else, where now I have to have conversations with my clients about why they can't buy X, Y, or Z because of the funds they have. It's gotten even worse.
Yeah.
So this was a lot better when the economy wasn't as bad. And so they had to move out. So when I think about the Urbandale City Council raising property taxes more to give everybody else an excuse to jack up the rent and to do this, it's crazy. I think Urbandale is the 19th highest taxed city in all of Iowa.
Really?
I had some facts here, and I should look at them a little more before I talk on my butt. But what irritated me the most was I read in Bleeding Heartland that they made a big article about how, hey, Urbandale City Council is very progressive now. They've the conservatives are gone, and it was touting that as a real big thing. And I read the candidates, and I won't throw anyone under the bus. I mean, I want to make your first podcast, dicey and interesting, but I don't want to make that dicey and interesting. And I know some too, so it's even worse when they listen to this, they're going to roll their eyes at me.
Yeah.
But it's true, and I'm going to stand up for people that have these issues. So a lot of these candidates I was reading, they ran on affordable housing, and they ran on all of these things to make the community better, and to do this. If you go to the city council, they talk. One of their top priorities is affordable housing in Urbandale. It's such a crock.
Is there affordable housing in Urbandale?
No, we couldn't find another place. Urbandale is super expensive when it comes to housing because it's a nice neighborhood.
Yes.
And it's a nice town. There's nice neighborhoods in it. Aside from maybe off Merle Hay on there, you're not going to find anywhere else.
And I think their schools are pretty good too.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
And it's weird because Urbandale has it where there's some students that are in the Waukee district. My future kids, when I have them, they will actually have the opportunity to go to the Johnson School District, even though the Waukee High School is closer to my house. Don't ask me how that works. And so they have opportunities to go to other nice schools too. So it just blew my mind that that we have these self-proclaimed super progressive city council members that are voting to harm people. And what blows my mind away is I'll see. I don't have social media. I have a LinkedIn now because for the nonprofit.
Sure.
And so a lot of our board members will run the stuff, the things. And my fiance was showing me the UPLEX stuff, and it was just interesting seeing liberal legislators promote and support this. Oh, this is a great idea, and whatever. And I'm like, do you guys know what you're talking about here? Like, this supporting this is so counter to a lot of the things that you bring to the Iowa legislature. So, are you paying attention? Are you supporting your friends? What's going on here? The other issue is it's like $43 million for this building. It's a splash pad, a few offices, and a pickleball court and basketball courts. I think Des Moines just passed one where they have an indoor and outdoor pool, which is like half the price. So the other question is, where's the money going for this?
Yeah.
And they talked about it, and I watched some of the meetings where they have the Parks and Rec person talk about it. They had no answers to these tough questions people were asking, and you can't figure out where all this money is going until after the project's built.
Mm-hmm.
And by
Right.
the time you do an audit or something, the damage is done.
And the money's gone.
Yeah.
And the building's there.
And the other thing is, people asked, well, this is kind of far away, and this is more for Waukee. It says it'll be cheaper for Urbandale residents. Well, how much? Oh, well, we'll let you know later on when we vote on it. What a bait and switch that is.
Yeah.
They're gonna, oh, hey, vote for this, give us the money, and then we'll tell you how much it costs you. You wouldn't do that for any other agreement ever. So yeah, before I want to rag on some very annoying things that the conservatives have passed that have not benefited people's special needs. Both parties are guilty of this.
Sure they are.
For example, if you want to go for a federal level, the IDA covers a lot of laws and things for it, and I have the portion in our guide here, which I'll plug later, about the IDA. But one thing is, they are also in charge of how much funding will go to the states for these programs. We've had, within the last 12 years, we've had Republican control, we've had Democrat control. Neither side has put the money in like they promised to when all this got started.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to fight each side, but when I stand back and I look at these factors, I think of this underserved population, and it makes me realize that this is a very underserved population, because even the people that would proclaim to be on their side, their actions are completely different than what they say. And it's really disheartening. And and the thing is, none of this was in my wheelhouse. I didn't think of these things until I got in this field. And if I wasn't in this field, I still wouldn't think about it.
Right.
So our goal is to get awareness of this and maybe, get some help. And the irony of this is, in Iowa and in urban areas in Iowa, 1 in 5 individuals have a disability. In rural Iowa, 1 in 3 do.
Mm.
So this is something that affects everyone. Everybody
Yes.
has a family member or a friend or knows somebody that has special needs. You would think that something that affects so many citizens would be more important, but it's not.
No.
So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I know I jumped from why I got started on the nonprofit to this whole tangent, but that's how we talk.
But I think that's important to know.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people to understand and know, because the politicians aren't going to publish that themselves. They're not going to say, hey, guess what we did? Yeah. We took funding away from disabled people. We made it harder for them to live in our community. Isn't that great? And what I want to ask them is, how does it harm anyone in the community for the disabled people to live there? How does it harm anyone for group homes with disabled people to be interspersed in the community? It doesn't. Nobody can come up with one good, solid, legitimate answer as to how disabled people harm non-disabled people by living near them.
And unless you're kind of an a-hole, like the whole not in my backyard thing isn't really a factor. I remember
Right.
we grew up in the south side by Fleur over there
Mm-hmm.
in McKinley, and there was a waiver home. So we had these cool, I grew up in this cool California ranch style kind of neighborhood. And 2 houses down, I think it might have been Mosaic, I learned later. I didn't know it as a time. I didn't, as a kid, I didn't even care. I was worried about girls and wrestling. But but yeah, the home was there, and I never thought, ugh, look at this. I was like, oh, cool. You know, they have a place to live. Like, so unless you're kind of not all there upstairs, I don't see what the negative thoughts about it would be. You know, it's just a weird subject. I think it's more. I apply a Occam's razor to it, where it's you attribute incompetence more than malice, and I think a lot of it's just ignorance and people not being aware of how big the situation is, and at least that helps me feel a little better that not everyone around me is kind of mean. So,
Yeah. And unfortunately, there is a lot of ignorance in this state.
yeah.
Whether it's intentionally keeping yourself ignorant or just being so ignorant you don't know how ignorant you really are. Iowa is plagued with ignorance.
Well, and the thing is, this even in red or blue states, this issue is pretty bad. Interesting enough, I say that, but a lot of people, and this was kind of by design. A lot of people go, "Why is it called Nancy's Place?" And excuse me, ooh.
I believe I asked you
Yeah,
that as
did.
well.
And that's kind of part of the hook. So my Aunt Nancy, she has a severe intellectual disability, and she lives in Southern California. And she's got a nice house where they actually have a pool.
Wow.
Don't for all the weird problems that California has, they got that right.
Yeah.
And so kind of the thought process was, well, Hunter's Place is a little too narcissistic for my taste.
Yeah.
And so I would call it Nancy's Place because she would have the ideal of what our goal would be to provide housing, and to really pay homage to her, because if I don't pay homage to her, who else is? She's just gonna be some lady that lives in a waiver home that nobody thinks about.
Yeah.
The thing about the people that I serve and I work with, I see so many unique and amazing things. Just
Yeah.
even if someone that's just trying to learn to tie their shoe,
Yeah.
you know, where they have some kind of you know, disability that would make it much more difficult than
Right.
someone else would.
Right.
The fact that they practice, and you watch them practice so hard, and then when they finally, you know, get it, and just how good and empowered they feel, that's what gets me sold into this job, and
Yeah.
that's what keeps me going despite just the awful kind of homes and the low, the high turnover rate and low
Yeah.
employment that my field has.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps me in it. That's what makes me feel just good about what I do.
Yeah.
I've never, and no one's gonna believe me, but this is the only job I've ever had where I've never gone, ugh, I have to go to work. I've never, in all the years that I've done this job, well, with the state anyway, I'll tell you why,
Yeah.
I've done that. And even the time that I had that feeling where, man, this wouldn't be for me, the amount of development and help that I was able to do changed that attitude really quick. Because there was a time right when I first started, I was ready to quit instantly, and I realized, you know, maybe this job isn't for me. Maybe this elective class I took was, maybe they kind of propagandized me a little too much and made it seem too good to be true. And the reason that was because I had, you know, some educational background for this field, they threw me in the deep end with some
Yeah.
potential clients. And so one of them, he had extreme schizoaffective disorder and borderline personality disorder. Now,
That's
when
tough.
people talk about this and they think about the movies and how exaggerated it is, this was as close to those movie exaggerations as you'd ever get, and I couldn't believe it. So I meet with the client, and gives me this 1,000-yard stare, I'm like, oh, this person's gonna attack me.
Uh-huh.
Never did, and never had a history of it, but it's that intimidation factor.
Sure.
And the hallucinations they would have, they would think people are pinching them and attacking them in real time. So I'd have to be like, hey, no one's attacking you, focus. And they'd think I was Bobby Kennedy, who's come back in time to kill them. Think they were the second coming of Jesus and I was Satan.
Wasn't JFK Jr. coming back recently? Wasn't there something about JFK Jr. coming back and
Oh, I missed that story.
running for as vice president to somebody?
I didn't hear that story
Oh.
at all. What happened there?
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll just skip that one.
As much as I'm proud of listening to both sides of the media, that one went right over my head, and probably for the best.
Yeah.
But so we were sitting there, and I'm getting screamed at for 8 hours straight.
Oh yeah.
And part of how we would, we were dealing with the maladaptive behaviors they had. Is
Mm-hmm.
you have to disengage, have some headphones on, watch something on your TV or phone, and just ignore it.
Uh-huh.
And about 2 months of this, I am miserable. So that's why I said with the state, because at
Yeah.
first I was like, I don't want to go back to work. And then I'm trying to think of, man, this sucks. I gotta think of something. So I, I had Spotify on my phone, and I asked him. I was like, hey, what's your favorite band? Who do you like? And he said Van Halen. I was like, oh, well, what song? And Jump. Okay, cool. So I play it, and it was crazy. Like the clouds parted, and he was just focusing on the music.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't being attacked. He wasn't being pinched. He wasn't being bit by these phantom apparitions.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't giving me that 30-yard stare, and it was just calm. And then I was like, oh boy, hey, what else do you like? So he gave me another song.
Mm-hmm.
And then as this happened, he started talking to me about what the song meant to him, or the first time he heard it, or when he listened to it, being in high school. Because for a lot of people with schizoaffective disorder, that develops kind of later in your teen years and everything. And there's a lot of other things that can exacerbate it, but that's kind of when. So he was just telling me about going to school and the things he did or what he did with his family. And I was like, holy crap. I don't know what the language on here. Plus, I keep a squeaky clean thing.
I think we allow crap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think crap is a pretty low level. Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is actually stopped. There's something happening here.
Yeah,
And,
you had a breakthrough with him.
Yeah, and that was like the first time I was like, oh, I can do something here, and I can make this work. So a few weeks later, we've gotten cleaned in the, I bring in the boom speaker, we're playing it louder, he's cleaning up his house and picking up things, and then agrees to go back to therapy, which he hasn't gone in forever. And it was the greatest feeling in the world, not just for the warm and fuzzies for me, how great I am. It's just seeing that I was capable of helping another person, that I was capable of helping someone for even if it's just a few minutes,
Right.
get in a better place and have a better quality of life.
Absolutely.
And of course, that right there, I was hooked. I was done.
Yeah.
And I felt guilty because I did leave that organization to work for the state, but IPERS, pension, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You can't
Why
say
not?
no to that.
Right.
Because you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others.
Absolutely.
And I felt really guilty about it, but
Yeah.
I got to do what I got to do.
And I understand what you mean about, having that breakthrough with someone and being able to get them to a place that they haven't been in a long, long time that is beneficial for them. That's kind of why I do what I do. I'm able to help people and give them hope and just be there for them. And be a comfort. And, it's great when you can help somebody. And, it's not so much pat myself on the back as much as, I told you could do this. And see, you didn't believe me, but now you're doing it, aren't you? And you've done a great job. And you cared enough to think, okay, what can I do to interrupt this guy's cycle, right?
Or desperate enough, maybe.
Cared enough or were desperate enough. But if you aren't, you care when you're desperate, right? Yeah. And so you wanted it to stop, so you figured out a way to interrupt the pattern he was in, and you did a phenomenal job. You hit it on the head. And I'm sure that he is or was grateful to you and probably had some of the best days that he ever had when he started being able to listen to music again and remember who he was and what his life was about. I can't imagine feeling like you're being attacked all day, every day.
And that's what the other thing too. It was hard for me to leave that at home, because a lot of any kind of job where you deal with crazy situations,
right,
attorneys dealing, say you deal with a lot of DHS cases or something like that, or more kind of the violent messed up things. A firefighter, a police officer, nurse, those kind of fields where you're seeing some real stuff or just some really just depressing outside of the norm situations.
Right.
They always say, leave it at home, whatever. Isn't that why a lot of attorneys drink so much? Just because of all the stuff they have?
Yeah, well, leave it at work, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, unfortunately, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and drug abuse is, I think it's pretty high in the legal community, because whether someone can or cannot leave it at work, we do see a lot of crazy things. We are under a lot of pressure, but yeah, so.
Well, and I was joking with you when I first met you when we were talking about the program, where I looked looked at everyone's reviews to see, okay, well, I'm going to make an educated decision, and I thought how silly it was for me to do that, because even if the lawyer does a great job and you lose and they do everything in their capacity, they're still getting that negative review no matter what they do.
Yeah.
So I was like, this isn't quite the metric I should be doing for it, and then it kind of came to word of mouth, and because you directed me to a few people, and you're like, hey, that person's pretty great, and yep, they were, and
Yeah.
and we could bring up kind of the legal network that I've tried to put together here for it.
Sure.
But yeah, back to him. That right there was the kind of thing that got me hooked for this, and it also made it more difficult to round it all back to your initial question for
Yes.
this. That's what got me kind of caring a lot more about my job, and you see the difference between the coworkers that do and don't.
Yeah.
This sounds bad, and I'll probably need to do another guide on how to deal with waiver situations for parents of adults in that, because
Right.
if you're not keeping an eye on things, you're going to deal with some nonsense,
Right.
and it sucks. And I don't want to scare parents, and I don't want to.
Right.
I want to empower them to be able to advocate for their kids, and that's
Absolutely.
the goal for everything.
Absolutely.
But that's why seeing the homes that I worked in it was so demoralizing for me. So finally, I came home, and I vented this every other day to my fiance, and she's tired of hearing it at this point, and she's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And she goes, "Why don't you just do something about it?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. What do you want me to do about it?" And she's like, "Think of something. Don't just give me some smart ass remark. Think about it for real." So as I did, I kind of put together that if we had a 501c3 status, we could get past paying the property taxes, we could get past paying income taxes, we could put all that money right back into the home.
Absolutely.
No more slumlord issues.
Right.
Easy idea until you figure out how much a house costs,
Right.
especially now.
Yeah.
But that was the idea. So I filed the 501c3 like I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and every families are cool, friends are great, because they're like, "Oh, Hunter's gonna do this."
Yeah.
too." And then it's kind of that patronizing thing, because they're not sure how big this will get or how you'll succeed. So they're like, "Yeah, good job, keep
Yep.
going." And so as we got the approval from the IRS, I had friends and family just recommend me to everyone that had a special needs question. So I was getting calls and things, and I was ready to answer these housing questions and do everything, and not a single damn question was about housing.
Oh, no.
And I didn't have an answer for any of them. Keep in mind, I've been in this field almost 10 years,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of general things. I still couldn't answer these basic questions that they had, because it wasn't my wheelhouse for what I typically do. So aside from feeling very embarrassed for not having to have the ability to answer these questions, I helped them figure them out, and I wrote down everything on some little Google Drive, and I wrote the answers. And funny enough, it came up to be like 9 pages. It's a lot of stuff I don't know.
Yeah.
And I showed my fiance that, and I also added a part for waiver housing, because there's a 4-year wait list just to have the opportunity to have HCBS housing for ID waivers. It's crazy.
That is crazy. 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years just to apply to have the opportunity. So my bright idea was, well, if it's this long, why not get kids in freshman year of high school, get it started there, so by the time they reach the age of majority, they're good to go.
Right.
And I really think about it from my own perspective. Man, I was the angstiest little dirtbag at 17 and 18. If you added some maladaptive behaviors to me and made me even more unbearable, or had my behavior be even worse than it already was, for whatever reason, and then expecting my mom to keep me around for 4 years after that,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd still be here.
Yeah.
I even without intellectual or mental disabilities, I probably wouldn't be here. She would've
Yeah.
just thrown me off a dam or something. I love her. She's nice, but
Yeah.
she's one of those old school moms that just does not play around. So I add that to the stuff, and I show my fiance, and she actually is the community resource coordinator for Des Moines Public Schools, and her office is in East High School. So she goes, hey, one of our social workers, her name's Kristen Tagg. She'd be great to present this to, and she goes, you need to practice meeting with people anyway because your social skills are terrible. I was like, well, thanks, honey. Yeah, she wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
But she's like, she's kind of a ball buster, but just go over there and see what she says, and whatever happens, happens. So I go into East with my little piece of paper, and I was like, hey, I had this idea, and maybe if we brought focus on the 4-year waiting list to your freshmen,
Yeah.
we could make people's lives easier. And she was going through it, and I was shocked because she's like, this is good stuff, and I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah.
You don't have, cause she's like, we don't have these resources, and then I was
Yeah.
even more confused. I was like, how does some guy that just whipped this together, how is he providing more resources to you than the entire Des Moines Public Schools has? Like that, it didn't compute. She's like, no, she's like, it doesn't. We don't have it. And so she asked me to formally have Nancy's Place partner with Des Moines Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, sure. We need community
Yeah.
engagement. We need to make make our inroads and things like that. So we formally apply. We get it, and then right after she gets a hold of me, and she's like, "Hey, I saw that you're an official partner. That's great. In 3 days, I need you to come to our learning annex Ingersoll and present this to all of the social workers in Des Moines Public Schools."
Great.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Huh?
So I'm looking at this little thing, and I was like, this sucks. There's no way I can walk up and present this to like 40 people.
Yeah.
No way. So that's how this got put together. And
Yeah.
so what this is WAVES, I guess. We had to come up with some acronym of some sort. So Waiver and Voucher Education Support. And when I presented this at first, this was only 20 pages. And the HCBS part was like page 8. This is now 70 pages.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the HCBS part is like page 31. And that's because of all the information and everything
Yeah.
I got to. And the funny thing is, I was like, oh boy, I have to speak in front of all these people. So DeMarcus Taylor, who actually took care of that housing issue, he was one of the supervisors there. He's amazing. Super bright guy. He got a hold of me. He's like, hey, I'll go with you if you want for support. And I was like, yeah,
Yes.
sure. So as I'm presenting this to everybody, I see him in the back, and he's giving me his double thumbs up like a pageant mom. He's like, you can do this. So I was like, boy, I'm glad I added him to the board.
Yeah.
But that all that support and the validation from our board of directors is amazing, and I wouldn't be nearly as far without them. And I hope they get
That's
all
great.
the credit in the world.
Yes.
The rule of thumb is surround yourself by people in the room that are smarter than you,
Yeah.
and then you're the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that apart because these guys all know their stuff and they're very intelligent.
Right.
So during this, it was well received, and I asked, well, what do you guys need? What can I do to make your lives easier? Overwhelmingly, they talk about guardianship and conservatorship.
Mm-hmm.
And soon, that's what they call foreshadowing to where you come in.
Yes.
So I didn't realize that, and I knew that we would switch some guardianships around, because we have a lot of, Woodward keeps all the easy clients, and they're older, they've been there forever, so
Right.
if someone's parents die, it's usually a staff or somebody else that will take over, or another family member. So
Right.
so it really wasn't my wheelhouse, so I knew about it, but I didn't know about it.
Right.
So I added the gamut of everything there from that. Pearson Bowman Law, they gave me a whole, they love the idea, they gave me a whole setup for special needs trust, and like, hey, we should add this too.
Yeah.
And it just kind of snowballed
Right.
into to what we have. And as I was doing this, I was like, well, hell, why don't we just make a little network of law offices that care
Yeah.
and get them going?
Right.
So, of course, one of the first people I meet is Lisa, and she's like, yeah, come on to my office, let's go and talk about it. And we ended up talking, 2.5 hours?
I think so.
And
Yeah.
I'd already worked 12 hours that night,
Yeah.
too. So I was already pretty delirious, but she was gracious enough to deal with me being loopy and just talking her ear off.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how we got to this point. And
Right.
The reception's been great. I just had a meeting with Brooke Lovelace. She's one of the lobbyists and executive directors for Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council, the DD Council. They have amazing resources. And
Yeah.
honestly, probably just as valuable, if not valuable, than what I have in here, where they'll have YouTube meetings where they'll have clients with disabilities participate too, which is wonderful.
Great. Yes.
And they will talk about all of the legislative stuff that's going on and how this may or may not affect the state of Iowa.
Oh, that's great.
And I point blank asked her, because this book's already going to get bigger,
Yeah.
like I told you it would. I asked her if I could add to the book that, because anything the legislation does will change this
Absolutely.
fundamentally.
Yeah.
So if we have families that aren't aware of it following along, even if something changes in here, they know about it.
Right.
And, it gives me
Right.
time for the next 2 years to make an updated copy of this.
Yes.
So, just the community support and just the grassroots meeting of everyone. For someone who has, if you would have told me 4 years ago this is what I'd be doing, I would laugh at you and call you crazy. And for the amount I've learned and personally developed trying to help others, it's been really good. So, I was completely flattered when you called me up. You're like, hey, you want to do my podcast? And then today I was like, so asking for some of the details before I showed up. I was like, so how many have you done so far? You're like, oh, you're the first. And I was like, what'd I say? Oh, you want to start things off wrong. Huh?
Absolutely not. I
Oh.
can't think of a more, a more deserving agency. Like I said, even though I don't have family members that have a need for this, I have a very dear friend who has been in group homes, and he is so special to me. Anthony is his name, and I met him when his grandmother wanted to become his guardian, and so I was. I believe I was his guardian ad litem during the guardianship process, and the moment I met him, I knew there was just something so special about him and his grandmother's relationship. And even though I'm not a part of, I'm not his guardian ad litem anymore, I still keep in touch with him. I talk to him regularly when I see him. I'm always excited to see him. He's always got something new and exciting to talk about, and he's grown a lot. He has grown a lot, and I am one of those people that it fights for the underdog.
Yeah.
I've always been a person that fights for the underdog, right? And what are these developmentally disabled adults and people if they're not the underdog? Nobody else takes up the fight. Nobody else gives them a voice. And I will always support anyone who gives them a voice, because it is so important in our society. How we treat our most vulnerable members says a lot about us, and they are vulnerable. The elderly, the very, very young, and the disabled people. And it's just, when I meet someone who cares, then they become a friend.
We hit it off pretty quick.
We did.
Yeah. I even prefaced, I was like, I'm more libertarian, just so you know, because I saw it.
Because I think it's very important.
Yeah, and I guess what I kind of look at it is, especially the way our culture's changed in specifically the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
You see a lot of other interest groups pop up, the BLM stuff, the LGBTQ stuff.
Right.
And them really advocating, and it doesn't matter what you think of the groups either. It doesn't
No.
matter at all. But the fact that these groups are fighting for representation and fighting to have their voices heard.
Right.
This group gets none of that.
Right.
You're not going to have any kind of situation where that some businesses do a little bit of the special needs stuff, but
Right.
not to the point of like a Pride Month or anything. Like,
Right.
this population's not going to get that, and that's what really stinks, because it doesn't matter what your gender is, doesn't matter what your race is, your socioeconomic status. This affects everybody.
It does.
It doesn't care, and it might slightly be a little more on the lower end socioeconomic side, but there's some social factors why, but
Yeah.
at the same time, doesn't care. And,
Yeah.
and something this is the most bipartisan thing you could ever imagine, and I'm kind of in this place where I see both sides in different niches and different sections
Right.
don't care, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is gonna be a long climb to whatever we want to do.
Right.
And I'll do that fight. Like, this is never thought this would be my purpose. Never thought that this would be my wheelhouse, and this would be something I care so much about. But just seeing how wonderful this population is, and seeing how great these individuals are, to a point where I'd probably rather hang out with them than hang out with everybody, my fiance excluded. But,
Yeah.
save myself
Right.
there. You know, that's really what's going to keep me going on this.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at. A lot of good things have happened. Verding
Good.
Credit Union just gave us our first grant. So
Fantastic.
me dumping $800 of my own money into a grant writing program at VMAC has paid off.
Paid off.
Um,
Wonderful.
So we got that. Remax Concept Cares Foundation, they're amazing. They've helped us out.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Elevate Digital Marketing, Session over there, he's contributed and he's helped out. And
Fantastic.
He's there, give us that. And yeah, and then the different, and you probably know a lot of, you've already seen this. Actually, it's updated a little bit, but you know probably everyone for the legal partners that are on board and helped out. So yeah, this is kind of the rock to build our church, so to say. You know,
Sure.
just to get everything going, and we're
Sure.
just gonna keep going.
What's your next goal?
So my ideal goal is to have these distributed April 1st to all of the social workers and special education teachers that need these for the entire Des Moines Public School District.
Great.
A lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
My end goal is to print off 7,500 of these guides. I just got the quote for it. One in Urbandale quoted me $55,000.
Oh my goodness, $55,000.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, it's
yeah,
70
I know.
pages, and
Mm-hmm.
I have always printing over. They do. I think they do Golf Magazine too.
Okay.
She met with me, and I met with her at Smoky Row. She got us a much better deal, and she's committed to helping us out. So
Fantastic.
That's been amazing. I'll give
Yeah.
her all the credit in the world. If you need printing, go there. But it's still, even for 7,500, I think it's about 17 grand, which it's a lot. But when you think about these
yeah.
being about $250 a pop, that's not terrible.
No, it's not.
Especially for the population we're trying to reach, because I'd also like to get these to religious organizations. I met with Pastor Whitfield at Corinthian Baptist.
Yeah.
Great dude.
Yeah?
Second I met him, gave me a big old hug. He's like, I'm a hugger. I was like, that's okay. And we talked about how he felt that a lot of religious organizations could step up and do more for the
Absolutely.
population too.
Yep.
And I was so relieved to hear that. And
Mhm.
I probably could have talked to him for hours too. He was such a really cool guy to speak with and to kind of get ideas from.
Yeah.
One thing I did get actually an email back from Erin Kieran at WHO.
Oh, yeah.
Because she shared her story with her son and everything. I think it was Michael Francis, I think. And she was very candid, and the courage she has to do that is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I sent her an email. I was like, well, what's the worst?
Yeah, right.
She's like, oh, yeah, I'd love to look at it. We're going to go on vacation stuff, but yeah, I'll check it out. So hopefully, I'll get some feedback from her. And,
Absolutely.
I've also talked to a lot of families that have children with disabilities, and just asking them to kind of read this and go,
Yeah.
hey, does this fit what you're looking for? And
Right.
does this include? Because the most patronizing thing anyone can do is to create something for a population without knowing if it's effective to that population, or asking the population if they need it or if they want it. I notice a lot of nonprofits do this, where it's about bragging about what you do,
Yeah.
and bragging about how great you are, but not really delivering the services that you say you'll do. I mean, I think that's the problem with that Uplex in Urbandale. A lot of these city council people, whether they want to take over for John Forbes when he retires, and for the Urbandale House, or for the house in that district, or whatever, they want a vanity project. They want a big. They want to go, hey, I did this. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. I did something, so vote for me and give me the credit. It's the same thing that a lot of politicians do or nonprofits do.
Right.
And it's really disappointing. I understand the motivation behind it, but it doesn't serve the best interests in everybody except someone's self. And for you to be in a position to make decisions for people that elect you democratically, or to be a part of an organization that states that they're going to help the community, when you're not really doing the premise of what you say you're going to do, it's disappointing. So,
It absolutely is disappointing.
and you remind me that if this becomes a multi-million-dollar thing and everything's going, you hold me accountable just as much. Say, hey, Hunter, remember when you
Right.
said that? I got it
Yeah.
on tape. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I got it on podcast, mister. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where it's at. So I'm really trying to be as positive I can without just being cynical. And
Yeah.
I mean, the hope of making things better is what drives me.
Great.
But there's so many other just things of seeing how stuff works.
Yeah.
And there are a few other people that are in political spheres that I need to talk to. But man,
Sure.
I could say some things about some of the projects they do and just how self-centered and self-serving they are.
Yeah.
I won't tell it to their face, obviously. but it's just crazy that the landscape of how it is and how much of a boys' club a lot of the things are, depending on what the organization is.
Right.
And me being this little 7-month-old approved
Right.
nonprofit, just trying to get scraps and trying to figure out where we can go and navigate. It's a daunting task, but
Yeah.
I like a good challenge. And,
Yes.
And it's made me a lot more aware of my community, who's who in the community, and it's also kind of helped me realize, oh, this is how you're making your money, or it makes me
Right.
figure out what the average citizen wouldn't care about in a million years. So it's weird, really weird experience doing all this, but so far I love it. So
Great. Well, Hunter, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. It was very informative. It's definitely something that has been needed for a very long time. I'm excited to see how Nancy's Place grows, and if I can be a part of that at all in
you
any
already
way,
are,
shape, or
so
form.
Don't even say that. You've already
Yeah.
you've already helped out. So to speak how nicely Lisa is and how much she cares about this. Midway during the presentation of this, she pauses and cuts me a check and says, I want to be a part of this here. And I was like, oh, well, I know how you feel about this situation. So if that's anything to show how much she cares about these kind of issues, that she'll just dive right in and do it. You know, these are the kind of allies, if you're running a nonprofit or do anything, these are the
Yeah.
kind of people you want on your side that genuinely care and genuinely want to help you make a difference. Because without her, without my board of directors, which they're all amazing, without our community partners, I've got nothing. And so without you guys,
Well,
this
I
isn't
appreciate
happening.
that. I appreciate that. And that's what it takes. It takes people that care.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. It takes people who care about other people, and there's just not enough of that. I feel like in our society now, we're getting away from actually just looking at each other as human beings that deserve to be loved and respected and treated well. These people fundamentally are just as valuable as anyone else on this planet. And it blows my mind that other people can ignore them like they mean nothing.
I actually have more value. I've learned more lessons from some of the people in this population
Yes.
of just their determination,
Absolutely.
their creativity, their ability to solve problems in unique ways. I've learned so much from this population, probably more so than a lot of others.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's crazy, just the things that they are capable of and the things they tell you about yourself.
Yes.
And the ways that they make you challenge your own personal biases and
Yes.
and your own kind of worldview. So
Yeah.
so yeah, this job, I mean, in my 20s I was a mess. Like I just had nothing going for me. Wasted a long-term relationship. Wasted her time being a turd. And just I'm being honest. Like
Yeah.
I didn't have my stuff together, and I wasn't in any way, shape, or form doing it. And if it wasn't for me getting in this field and learning that the goofy problems and the maladaptive behaviors that I had from my difficult upbringing as a child, it wouldn't it wouldn't be who I am.
Right.
I had because how you are as a person is determined on how you are treated as a kid, which you
Right.
learned. I grew up homeless in Texas when I was
Yeah.
a kid. My dad had a great business. I got to meet a lot of the Dallas Cowboys. Got to meet Leon Lett. My dad told me not to bring up the Thanksgiving game where he threw me over the fence because he cost the Cowboys that versus Miami that year. But I got to go and do all that, and I got to see all these things, and then my life completely changed because my dad was a bad alcoholic. Love my dad to death, and something he couldn't get the best of, and he passed away later because he never overcame it. But we slept in our car. We lived in. I remember watching the Super Bowl with the Cowboys and the Steelers, living in the Best Western Inn. Battered women's homeless shelters. We didn't have a home for the longest time, so I don't know if maybe that is part of why this means a lot to me. But through all that and us overcoming it, I had picked up so many maladaptive behaviors and such a chip on my shoulder from that. So even though I overcame all of that, I was still fighting with myself. And if it wasn't for this population, me appreciating what they do and them making me appreciate how my life's not nearly as bad as I would make it out to be, and feeling sorry for myself and feeling I'm owed something because I got such a rough life.
Right.
That mentality went out the window. And, it's not really a story in my upbringing I tell a lot of people, but, well, I guess everyone knows now. But that's really helped me kind of center myself and overcome these things. This population of people are so much more than just a stigmatized disability.
Yeah.
So this has become my world, and it's made my life better for it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Again, thank you so much. I hope that you will come back and join us again.
Well, I'll be your reserve. If someone cancels, just call me up. I'll come in. We'll talk about more spicy topics.
Deal.
I'll plug Nancy's Place real quick.
Yes.
For anyone listening, it's my email is hunter@nancysplace.org, or you can go to the website to find me at nancysplace.org. If you know anyone that needs any mental health resources, doesn't matter when, ages 3 to adult, even if they're in a waiver home, even if they have their things kind of well suited, there might be some services or something that they might be missing. This will be available to everybody, hopefully April 1st of this year. But I will have some availability to kind of do some tests with other families that if you're interested in reviewing it. I need everyone's input to make this the best that I can. We're going to make this a biannual thing, so we'll improve upon it, we'll make it better, and we'll just serve everybody we can. I got Madrid Public Schools I'm going to meet with, and we're going to try to get every school district we can.
And I would add, if you are in a position to donate anything, it would be a great place to start to donate.
I could plug our It Takes a Village thing, which
there you go.
Conveniently remind me of who came up with that first. I laughed. I guess one thing too, it's a double plug. We have an initiative called It Takes a Village initiative. Now, we have a unique opportunity to finance through Iowa Finance Authority a 0 to 1% 30-year fixed mortgage once we secure the funds to have regular underwriting to do so. Now, how that works is we partner with an HCBS waiver provider such as like Candeo, Mainstream Living, all the ones that a lot of people know. And then we get that set up. By us utilizing the low cost of the mortgage and the 501c3 tax benefits, with the rent that we get to ensure that those clients live in a nice home, we can also pay that house off with it, and we actually make a profit in our gross receipts that can go into a pool to keep that house taken care of indefinitely. Makes it recession proof, makes it, the rent locked in where it is, and it ensures that we can stop this problem from happening anymore. We're at 28% of our goal now. Every $10 donation monthly is one of those percents. So if you're ever so inclined, a monthly donation of $10 will add up quite a bit, and you can actually help us provide our first house.
Fantastic.